And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Business Focus Live with me, John, where we talk about business related topics as well as news from here and around the world. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. And we're back. Thank you again for joining me today. So today is February 25th, 2020, 2022. So it's been several years no, since the pandemic occurred. But anyway, so for this week's episode, we'll be talking about things that have happened in the past week or so, things that are interesting, some are concerning, some are, funny and so forth. But anyway, to start off, the main issue here we'll be talking about for our first topic is what if a company were to suddenly increase their prices regardless if it's a products or services? Would people still or their customers continue to support it? Or will this have a detrimental effect on the company's bottom line here? So this is the case of Amazon. In this case, the Prime services that they're offering are now are going to increase, not substantially, but still, right? Are the customers here so price sensitive that they would find another alternative, if there's even an alternative here? And we will talk about that. Again, on a related story, so in terms of increasing prices, shoppers at Walmart have seen had an increase in their grocery bills as to what caused this. We'll talk about that as well. Next, we'll be discussing, nothing negative about the issue with Joe Rogan that as we've discussed in the past, but in terms of what's the deal or how much is the deal that Joe Rogan and Spotify arranged in the past. We mentioned, I think it was around in the north of $100 million, but that could be significantly more. We'll talk about that. And next, we'll be talking about how a ride-sharing company, which used to, offer services for transporting people back and forth to and from places, are now venturing into uncharted territory by offering medical services. Now, if that makes sense, what are the consequences here and so forth, we'll talk about that. And lastly, stay tuned for the last part when we talk about, the first, I won't say first ever, but a really interesting electric boat, first ever flying electric boat. I misspoke. So it's not just an electric boat, but it's a flying electric boat. So take a look at that once we get to the latter part of the discussion here. Anyway, so as mentioned, so to start off, when we talk of increasing prices, obviously, typically, customers are always looking for a better deal or look for competitors here. Now, obviously, Amazon Prime is the only major player in the industry or in the online industry. So, services, what you call it? Yeah. So obviously, they can command, they can dictate the price, but not so much that it would off versus the convenience of using their services here. Anyway, so let's take a look at the article. Where was it? Okay. There you go. So it mentions here, according to TheVerge.com, Amazon price will get more expensive for new subscribers starting tomorrow. So meaning for the new one. So if you're late into the game, but does this mean this will not affect existing subscribers here? So anyway, so obviously they're trying to get you to subscribe now and save. Like in this case, save $20 on your annual membership fee. Now, is $20 a lot? Since you're going to be, the logic here is you tend to spend more if you think you're saving more in your purchases here. Anyway, let's take a closer look. So you can see here, it was announced that Amazon Prime will see its first price increase in 4 years, starting on February 18th for new subscribers. So the cost will be now from an annual of $120 to $139. So roughly a $10 difference. So meaning from $13 to $15. So it may not seem much, but obviously in the grand scheme of things that it would generate significantly more revenue for the business here. And obviously, if you're intertwined or you're reliant on their services, obviously the convenience that purchasing affordable prices at their stores or at their platform, you have no other option because obviously in this e-commerce platform, you have only Amazon here. That's why they could be considered as monopolistic because of their practices, which we've discussed a lot of issues, and the list could go on and on in terms of how they deal with their customers, the fake reviews, which deceives customers in terms whether to purchase this item, and then another issue is competing with other resellers within their platform so that they can generate even a substantial loss at the start, so that they can eliminate competition, and then internally regarding how they treat their employees in terms of being able to reduce the cost significantly on the selling price, but at what expense or at what cost. They try to cut cost on let's say minimum wage in terms of what do they call this, minimum wage for their employees, and the situation in their warehouses are deplorable, especially those who makes the delivery, that you're not allowed to take breaks here. But that's beside the matter here. So in terms of prices here, right? Obviously, at the end of the day, for the consumers, does it make sense still that you would continue to support the platform here? So let's take a closer look here. So as you can see here, the prime cost history here. So way back in 2005, so if you started way back then, it's only around $80 and has significantly grown 20, 30, and another $10 here for for the past less than two decades or so. Now obviously if they can command the price, then so be it, and there's the subscribers are at their mercy here. Obviously it's not just in their platform but others as well here. So what they can do here is current Prime subscribers can put off worrying about this until March 25th, which is the day before those same price will start to take effect on the day of your next renewal, which is so meaning all of the subscribers. So obviously this is going to generate millions or billions of revenue for the business here. Now, what's the justification for said company for increasing the price? Now, wait a sec. Okay. So in the article, it was mentioned that it wasn't announced as to if there's any new features that are coming into Prime. An analyst suggested that the price increase due to the rising cost of Amazon facing across the company here, which is obviously they've been trying to diversify into other platforms and other businesses, not just in e-commerce but in cloud services, but as well as streaming services and producing films and so forth. And that obviously it's going to generate a lot of cost here, and obviously not all of their endeavors can be considered a successful, especially in a very competitive platform in streaming services and so forth. And I think there's been some backlash regarding, we've discussed that they plan to create a TV series for the Lord of the Rings, but I think based on reports that they want to focus more on diversity rather than focus on the story that Mr. Tolkien created, the narrative here. Well, we'll see how that pans out. And obviously at the end of the day, if their ventures in other aspects doesn't pan out as well as one would like, and obviously other parts of their business has to support them, and and one of the strategies that they can do is increase the price here, but obviously up to a certain point before customers are fed up or complain to the point that they have to reduce their price. So I'll keep you updated with regards to the situation here as to what's going on, or how will this affect Amazon, and will Amazon subscribers continue to support the what do you call this? Support the company here. Anyway, next we have here is again on a related story. So in terms of increasing of prices, grocery items are also increasing. So is this due to the increase of inflation, which is inevitable with how the country or the US economy is dealing with the volatility of the market? The interest rates are all-time low, so eventually at a certain point you have to increase them, and obviously increasing the inflation can be detrimental to the economy here. Anyway, so we'll take a look here now. How will this impact Walmart in terms of purchasing here? Now obviously people buy basic necessities, food, water, clothing, and of sorts. Will this affect the bottom line of Walmart here? We'll take a look. Here at cnbc.com. Okay, let's switch here. There you go. So it mentions here, Walmart says shoppers are on alert as grocery bills are climbing. So according to the uh, Chief Financial Officer, Brett Biggs, the retailers on research shows consumers are paying attention to prices. So meaning, any sudden increase of prices we've talked about in the Amazon article, if there are no alternatives, obviously you are forced to buy the product. But if there's alternatives that can offer, a lower price, and even if it's a slight decrease, people tend to gravitate into more affordable item, typically very inexpensive item. And they mentioned here, even if they aren't trading down to cheaper brands or buying smaller packages. Now, obviously, that can only happen if that product that you're buying has a very strong brand recognition, that regardless of increase, as mentioned, whether Amazon Prime subscription or even Apple would increase their price, people would still flock to their stores. Now, it mentions here the big retailer box said it has the same number of rollbacks or temporary price reduction as it did at the end of the first quarter of 2021 or last year. And it goes on to mention, during the period of inflation like this, middle-income families, lower middle-income families, even wealthier families become more price sensitive, according to the CEO of Doc Macmillan. And obviously, obviously, if you're selling, basic commodities that people would need to buy, and obviously, it would lessen or decrease your purchasing power. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. That's why it's either you generate more income for the household or for the individual, so that you can buy more, look for better business opportunities, so that inflation is part of the game. That's why government has to find a striking balance of increasing interest rate or lowering interest rate that can stimulate growth for the economy here. Anyway, furthermore, according to the Chief Financial Officer, as mentioned, they're not trading down to cheaper brands. So meaning they're very particular. So there's strong brand recognition. Buying smaller packages or skipping over discretionary items. So meaning you're foregoing other items normally that you would buy in your regular purchase. Let's say sweet items, I think, right? Normally you'd buy it if it's affordable, but let's say the other prices have increased significantly or even gradually, then you'll think twice whether should you buy this chocolate item or not. Anyway, he goes on to say, we haven't seen any marked changes at this point in how they're shopping. But obviously, as inflation increases, it drives up cost of food, fuel, vehicles, and other everyday products across the country. And obviously, it's a matter of time. Hopefully, this never happens like the Great Depression way back in the 1930s. That government can stabilize the economy and reduce or lower the unemployment rate, increase investment on SME, small businesses, so that it pumps more money for the business, more employment, more income, and more stability for the economy. Anyway, obviously for investors, if you're investing in, especially in the stock market, increasing expenses has been a key concern for many investors who are watching, not just in particular companies, but also in general, whether is it a good time to invest? Should you hold on to your money, save it in your bank, and so forth. Now, obviously, you have a lot of considerations here, but at the end of the day, for a company like Walmart, it mentions here that their fiscal fourth quarter earnings top Wall Street's expectation. So it mentions here a portion of retail sales came from higher prices, but same-store sales, a key metric, expanded by a little over 5% in the United States. So meaning more people are buying in their product. Again, at the end of the day, it's more on at the end of, marketing or selling your products to your consumers, whoever frequents in your stores here. According to the CFO, it's still in good shape. due to a confluence of factors, low unemployment, rising wages, and increase in household savings during the pandemic. Now, obviously, that can only help you up to a certain point, and at the end of the day, you want things to turn around so that it can, can be much better, not just for businesses, but for individuals themselves. And the CEO goes on to mention, during periods of inflation like this, middle income families, lower income families, even wealthier families become more price sensitive, meaning you're more aware of what you're spending, and you tend to spend less on those unnecessary items and focus on what you need, right? Bread, snacks, maybe not so much, less snacks. Anyway, uh, let's see what's next. Oh, we have some. Hello. Oh, see some viewer here. Thank you for stopping by. Not too many visitors today. Anyway, what are we talking about? So next we have what's our next article? Can't see here. There you go. So we've talked in the past, right, regarding the the issue. I won't say scandalous, but people may not agree how Joe Rogan uses his platform by discussing or sharing information or misinformation to the general public, and obviously being a TV personality that a lot of people, millions of people watches his show or his podcast or listen to his podcast, can create a strong influence of sorts. And when I got when I knew about his podcast, I was watching it in his at the time at YouTube. It was for free, and then he eventually jumped ship and went to Spotify, because the Spotify was willing to pay $100 million for him to cross over and bring all of his listeners or viewers there. Now, obviously, that's his right. It's a good business decision on his part. And what we didn't know is it goes beyond to the investment that Spotify is betting upon, because obviously later did we know that Spotify made his podcast, or his podcast made Spotify a very popular platform. And obviously, if a lot of listeners are tuning into his podcast, revenue from ads, from advertisers, are willing to pay a handsome amount to advertise during your listening period, so that they can advertise products or services left and right. And it goes significantly more. And as we found out recently, that his arrangement is not just worth 100 million, it goes in the north of actually worth 200 million. So no wonder that Spotify is betting on the popularity or the growing popularity of Joe Rogan, despite the backlash in terms of, you have music legend Neil Simon leaving the platform because of saying things that, it's one thing if you believe on, having alternative methods for fighting COVID-19 aside from vaccination. But that's just your opinion. But if you discuss it in a forum like the podcast, and obviously people are listening, they might assume that you're very knowledgeable, even if you don't have the background or the medical degree to state that. And obviously there are always two sides to a coin, and he tends to gravitate towards to what's more interesting at the moment. So it's kind of get iffy, but that's beside the point. And the point here is that that his podcast has become so popular that a lot of people are willing to tune in and even pay a subscription fee, and that always bodes well for him, for Spotify, as well as for the advertisers here. Anyway, let's look at the article here. Couldn't find it. I think I have the wrong article. Yeah. There you go. I had the wrong article. Okay. Anyway, so according to Yahoo.com, it mentions here that Joe Rogan's Spotify deal was actually worth 200 million, so significantly more than what was initially mentioned. And I think Spotify made the right bet in terms of betting on him, growing his channel. He'll become substantially more popular, and it's going to generate millions or billions of dollars for the company here. But the question, at what cost? Now, obviously, there have been clamoring in terms of how he presents himself, whether that's warranted or not, but that's for another debate, another discussion. But let's take a closer look here. So the exclusive podcast deal was actually $200 million. Uh, so the Rogan show has been the center of debate on whether Spotify should take a more active role in policing false and inflammatory content on its streaming platform, especially when it comes to COVID, misinformation, and hate speech. Now, those two are different discussions. So, in terms of misinformation, obviously he has to be more responsible because a lot of people listens to him, similar to when we talked about how Novak Djokovic is against vaccination, which is his own prerogative, but the fact that he wants to compete in tournaments and get exemption, that he be exempted for certain rules, seems kind of unreasonable and unfair for those people who are obviously it's not just yourself you're trying to protect, but your other people, co-workers, colleagues, and loved ones here. And I think that's the meat and potato here. That's why when people speak that they have other alternatives or better alternatives than getting vaccinated, unless you have data to support it, then it's just leave it to your own opinion, and always make a disclaimer that this is just my sole opinion, so that people don't get mixed up that whatever you say is gospel here. Anyway, and then obviously hate speech, no one wants to discuss about hate speech. That's what you want to be careful in terms of how you speak in public or in this forum. But obviously it always has to be in proper context, and the main issue in today's environment, that you can always put into the wrong context and take it against you, which is kind of disappointing, and blaming you for things that you've said in the past years and decades ago, and then bring it back to the present. Then where's the growth there? The question is, are you still doing the same things that you did in the past, which you have apologized, and did you learn from it? Not because what you did in the past and blaming you for being that person. It's as if you didn't do anything wrong throughout your lifetime. I mean, everyone makes mistakes. The question is, did you change, repent in a sense on what you did, what wrongdoings that you did in the past, and learn from it? And I think that's the better part of being a human here, and not just focus on the negative aspects. And obviously we can talk about it some more, but we're veering away. Anyway, according to Spotify executives mentioned here, they were trying to court the podcaster who made it big way back in 2020. So question is, how come it was significantly more? So the true value of the transaction is 200 million over 3.5 years. Now, if you did the math, so 3, or let's say 4 years, let's make it 4. So that's 50 million per year. And obviously there could be more stipulations regards to what incentives he could made. Similar to if you're a sports athlete, typically there are clauses to give you more incentives if you reach certain milestones here. And this is not even the worst part of earning 50 million. And if you compare that to another known radio analyst, Howard Stern, if you're familiar, he too is a very popular what do you call this, TV personality or radio personality, where he speaks his mind, whether you agree or not. And even he was able to generate a significant following and leverage his popularity. And what's interesting is here, let me show you here. According to page6.com, he was able to get a 500 million deal with Sirius XM. So which means he shifted from regular radio airwaves to shifting to a more lucrative deal, which the company is continuing to pay him, I think, 100 million a year, despite his advanced age here, which is tremendous if you think about it. So meaning it's up to them to leverage their popularity. But the question is, what is the content? What message are you trying to convey? Now, obviously, it boils down always to the individual, that's talking about it, and the company that's trying to portray here. Now, whether it's right or wrong, obviously at the end of the day, the consumer has to make the decision for themselves whether it makes sense or not. But we always like that, personalities that are active in public forum to be more responsible in what they're conveying, good or false information. Anyhow, anyway, let's see here. Okay. Ah, yes. So as I mentioned, so it was true. So according to the Spotify, it mentions that Spotify's biggest podcast in the United States, and 92 other markets, is Joe Rogan Experience, or JRE. So meaning, it makes sense for them to push or to leverage, to side with Joe Rogan regardless of the backlash that it generates. Because at the end of the day, if it generates substantial money and they need to recoup that 200 million that they've invested, if it's going to generate billions of dollars, and I think they've made their right bet, whether that's ethical or not, that's a different discussion altogether here. Anyway, next we have here. So we were talking about how ride sharing apps, Uber, Lyft, offer transportation services to and from places where you need to be, where you want to go, and so forth. But now they seem to be expanding here, which is kind of fortuitous but can be dangerous and difficult to do in terms of offering healthcare services. So meaning transporting, let's say if you're sick or you need to be transported to a hospital or healthcare facility and so forth. Obviously, it needs more requirements here. Obviously, drivers are not doctors, so they have to be trained. So meaning, will they have increased salary if they're going to be offered that? So meaning, Ubers are going to offer typical ride sharing apps, so the same cost that they're charging right now, and then charge a little bit more for a different type of service, similar to how ambulances work. But obviously, you're not going to offer the full service. And will this going to pan out, or will this going to cost more problems than as it in initially, because of uh, if things were to go awry during the transport, could the person sue the company or the driver here? It gets complicated quickly. But anyway, so let's take a look here. So according to the Verge.com, let's see if you can see it. Yes, there you go. According to the Verge.com, Uber and Lyft are taking on healthcare, and drivers are just along for the ride. Experts worry that rideshare drivers aren't prepared. Yeah, the key here is, are they going to be trained to be able to handle these situations, and what type of situations will be allowed? So I think the key here is maybe basic training here will be important. But again, do you offer the same fee? It's a little bit more expensive than basic ride sharing fees, but lesser than what you charge for, let's say, when you, as a hospital, for a hospital, what do you call this, for an ambulance to pass you by. Especially here in our country, they tend to charge you, a boatload of money, not like in other countries where medical services are given for free, so that consumers don't have to pay, or the general public. But anyway, let's take a closer look here. So you can see here the Austin Correll was driving for Lyft in fall of 2021 and was sent to pick up passengers at an address that turned out to be for a hospital. Then he pulled up at the curb. He found an elderly woman in a chair and another with a walker waiting for him, flanked by 4 or 5 nurses. So he got out and talked to the nurses and was told that the woman in the wheelchair had just had heart surgery and needed to go to assisted living. So the woman and the walker was her daughter, and she also appeared to have some health problems. So Corel, who said he started working for Lyft for a few months while he waited for the results of his bar exams, doesn't have any medical training. So it mentions here that he told The Verge that he felt unprepared for the responsibility of transporting these women, who were supposed to go to a motel around 2 hours away. And obviously, if there's were something to go wrong, he was not prepared to do it. And what's to be done with it? Call 911. And he mentions it. The biggest thing I was worried about was, what if there was an emergency? This isn't somebody who got their arm broken, got a cast, and needed to get home. And I think that's one of the main concerns here with regards to, obviously, people will always find ways to use the service that they have and use it beyond its means. And in the case of this, like, it's not like, if you're pregnant, you're asking for service to bring you to the hospital. And what if you were to be in labor in the middle? uh, uh, Maybe similar situations, but again, so the driver will be ill equipped here. And obviously the company could find an opportunity here to to help those individuals here. And it was mentioned here, ride sharing companies, as mentioned, have been moving into non-emergency medical transportation, or NEMT or NEM, offering their networks to healthcare organizations to need the needs to schedule rides for their patients. Now, I think that's a tremendous idea to help facilitate the concerns here. But again, they need to be trained, because obviously, if you call for an ambulance from a hospital, people or technicians who are inside of the vehicle are properly trained. And obviously, drivers are not trained for medical emergencies. So that, as I mentioned earlier, if they're going to offer that services, they need to be trained and paid more, because obviously, lives are at stake. And how about the liabilities here? You can just imagine if things were to go wrong. The company can be held liable for improper training, improper usage, or you're not supposed to do this and do that here. Anyway, it mentions here that the NEMT or NEMT was used to help low-income patients and Medicaid recipients to appointments they might otherwise miss because they lack access to transportation, which is another issue. That, the fact that if Medicare cannot provide for all your services, meaning maybe the government needs to find a way to be able to help everyone, uh, help everyone, pay for the medical bills to and from, because not everyone can afford it. And in terms of scale, in terms of the gap between the rich and the poor, the uber rich and the middle class and the poor are growing significantly. And someone has to pay for it. But obviously, it's a very complicated situation here. Now, obviously, rideshare is a cheaper alternative for healthcare organizations, and some experts think that it has the potential to fill the gap what NEMT services are able to offer. But still, there should be a caution in terms of, it's not just an alternative that, you don't consider other aspects here. As mentioned here, it has the benefits of flexibility. Okay, according to Yochai Eisenberg, assistant professor of disability and human development at the University of Illinois Hospital and Health Services Sciences System. Now, it can save money and it's less costly than a lot of existing infrastructure. But still, the training is the key here. If we want people to adopt this, and you need proper people to man those positions, whether you're a driver or also working as a healthcare assistant of sort. And the fact that there's a big gap is concerning, especially for a first-rate country like in the United States here. Anyway, it mentions here, while less driver training is a downside, rideshare can be more flexible, says Krista Chayachati, assistant professor of medicine at the Hospital of University, Pennsylvania. Now, obviously, training is important, because would you, rely on people who are not medical experts on life-saving situations here? But I think you can find a balance here. You can only do certain basic services, but not too complicated, because that's why you have the hospitals professionals here to help you out here. But this looks promising, but obviously up to a certain point, and there can be opportunities for less urbanized areas to take advantage. But still, typical or rideshare services tend to flock urbanized areas here. But we'll see how this pans out. Anyway, for our last topic, a very interesting one. So in terms of motorsports, a flying electric boat I mentioned earlier. When I saw this, caught my attention, and literally and figuratively, how did it caught my attention? Let me show you. So according to electric.com, watching the first flight of Candela's upcoming C8 flying electric boat ahead of its full-scale production. So if you can look at the screen, you can see here it's literally like flying on thin air. So it's not submerged or on top of the water, typical of boats that you see, you know, elsewhere. So what makes this unique? Obviously, it's not just it looks like it's flying, but also it's using an electric machine or electric to power up its boat. So let's see here. So as mentioned here, it's a Swedish company, electric boat, Candela. It's Australia of taking flight, and it's hydrofoil electric boats. It announced that marks a new ground as the company's upcoming Candela C8 takes its maiden voyage before serial production begins later this year. So the Candela C8 has a whirlwind development schedule so far, speeding through its design process to today's announcement of the maiden voyage. So Candela has delivered with impressive progress despite a worldwide pandemic. So you can see here, it looks tremendous, right? I mean, it's not common, you know, it's like it's hovering rather than sliding on top of the water here. Wait here. I like this one. So let's see here.
We started this project.
So when you look at this, looks cool, right? I mean, it's floating.
Everything we have learned from C7, our first boat.
Right? It looks like a regular boat from 4, but if you look closely, you can see that it's just what's the term here? Just hovering, smooth, right? So obviously, you know, as you go on the sea or to the to the ocean part, it tends to be a bumpy ride. But if you can provide, you know, a very relaxing, enjoyable, smooth ride, I think, you know, a lot of people would be interested, and especially that's, you know, they're trying to find ways to offer it. It's electric, as an electric vehicle here. Looks spectacular. Now the question is the cost here. How much is it going to cost you in order to be able to own a a Candela here or C8 here? Anyway, you know, for me, technology is always good, you know, to make our improvements as a civilization here, where it could lead us. You know, the potential is there, and it's different applications here. And it mentions here that hydrofoil flight doesn't just make riders smoother and quieter, it also reduces the energy requirement by about around 80%. That's pretty significant. That means that boats can get by with much smaller engine and less expensive battery, or go farther on the same size battery as a conventional electric boat, which I think that's the name of the game, you know, finding product innovation so that, you know, make improvements, you know, no matter how different it looks, as long as it gets the job done. I think that's all that matters here. But again, the questions with electric powered vehicles, whether it's land or sea or even air, is the key is its reliability, how safe it is. Because if it catches fire, we've seen, you know, in many videos, especially Tesla vehicles, if it catches on fire, it goes aflame quickly and it devours whoever's inside that vehicle here. And so making it extremely safe, similar to how aviation has done with airplanes here, not 100%, but close to it, would be advisable, so that more people would, you know, not think twice on adopting it, similar to how when people started adopting combustible engine for transport services here. Anyway, I think that concludes our discussion for today. Anyway, so if you have any questions regarding today's topic, I'll leave the link in the description so you can read the full article if you're interested. As always, I'll see you again next week for more business news. Stay here at Business Focus Live. So every Fridays at 3 p.m. Philippine time. As always, I think that's about it. So if you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.